video random on Sources of Law by Randy E. Kelly. Statutory law. Statutory law is basically a statute. A statute is put into place once it's a bill, and the bill actually makes it through the House and the Senate, and is signed into law by either the governor, if it's the state House and Senate, and the president, if it's the federal House and Senate. Obviously, states do have their own constitution. They do have certain statutes that are signed by the state, and certain statutes that are signed by the federal government. Now, the statutory law is one of the most crucial laws that we have in the judicial system, because it really determines how and if we are even protected in our society from one another and from the actual government itself. So it's really the basis of our law, it's the groundwork of our law, and how our government bodies actually function. For instance, corporate laws, wills, and probate administration are two areas that are governed by are several types of statutory laws or statutes. Okay, these particular statutes, though, are governed by the state, while on the other end, things like copyright and trademark laws, these are statutes that are governed by by federal statutes or by the federal government. So obviously, you can have if you have an issue with your with some corporate law or with your will or anything of that nature, you will be dealing with that in the state court. And if you have an issue with your copyright or your trademark, you will be dealing with that in federal court. Okay. Now, for example, something that's governed by both would be like consumer law, because the federal government has regulations about the things that we consume, and some states do actually have regulations about the food that is let into that state. Next, let's talk about administrative law. Now, administrative law is really broken down into several interrelated parts. So it's all one, though. There are different things like administrative rules, regulations, and procedures. Things that basically the purpose of this is basically record keeping and reporting requirements. These things really form a large part of administrative law. Things like administrative agencies are established with the goal of creating a body of professionals who are experts in their field. For instance, an administrative agency that I had to go through is the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. I'm a licensed massage therapist. So there's a regulation that was put into place for obviously safety reasons and health reasons and a few other things I can think of that would have somebody who's saying they're a massage therapist to actually have a certain level of education, a certain level of competency in the field, and a few other things that are added to that list. But by being able to be licensed, you cover that basis. So they are regulating the people who are actually calling themselves massage therapists. This kind of example of what administrative law is about. It's law that's put into place to kind of protect professionals like doctors, lawyers, and things of that nature. Any type of professional, from a CNA to a CPA, it doesn't matter. They all have a particular regulation or law that they have to follow. It's all been set up through the process of administrative law. Okay. Lastly, I want to talk, not lastly. Let's talk about case law, though. Case law also has been called decisional law, and one of the biggest things is judicial precedence. Precedence is a very big word when it comes to case law, because case law is brought into play in situations that a court might look at how another case decided the case. If their case is similar, they might make the same decision that another court made if it's equal to, if they're about equal, or that court is higher than them. Why is that done? It's done so that some level of continuity in the ruling and the interpretation, of the Constitution is put into play. So case law is one of the biggest things that the courts really base their decision on. What have courts done in the past? And one of the biggest cases where the Supreme Court actually changed the decision that was made years ago, and they didn't follow precedence, obviously, was the Brown versus Board of Education, which is a very big case. So that's kind of basically what case law is about. In general, courts in common law countries treat decisions of higher appellate courts as normative, and basically laying the groundwork for what's going on. So in a lot of cases, that decision is used to decide cases in lower courts. Constitutional law. Constitutional law is a study of foundational or basic laws of the nation or state or political organization. In this case, we're talking about, or we're referring to the U.S. Constitution or either the state constitution. Constitution is basically the framework for the government, how things work. And obviously they're going to limit and define the authority and the procedure of the political bodies to execute the different laws and regulations of that state or that nation. Okay. For instance, constitutional laws are put into place so that they'll identify the hierarchy in the government, such as who deals with what issues, the relationship of power and the balancing of power. That's kind of what the constitutional law refers to. The hierarchy of power, who runs what, how does what work, where it goes where. It's kind of doing the groundwork, because we couldn't have case law if we didn't have constitutional law, and obviously in no way could you have administrative or statutory law without constitutional law. So constitutional law is obviously the groundwork and the first form of law that allow these other three major roles of law to come into play. That's my memorandum, codenamed Video Random by Randy E. Kelly.